Hi guys, I'm Kai. Today I'll be talking about democratic capitalism. What is democratic capitalism? Briefly explanation, democratic capitalism, also referred as market democracy, is a political and economic system that integrates resource allocation by marginal productivity, synonymous with free market capitalism, with policies of resource allocation by social entitlement. These policies which characterize the system are enacted by democratic government. What it is and its history. Democratic capitalism was implemented widely in the 20th century, particularly in Europe and the Western world after World War II. The coexistence of capitalism and democracy, particularly in Europe, was supported by the creation of the modern welfare state in the post-war period. This implementation of democratic capitalism typically involves the enactment of policies expanding the welfare state, strengthening the collective bargaining rights of employees, or strengthening competition laws. These policies are enacted in a capitalist economy characterized by the right of ownership of property. After analyzing what is democratic capitalism, I'm going to further analyze each of them, and the presentation is split into two chapters. The first chapter is on democracy, and the second chapter is on capitalism. First chapter, Introduction on Democracy. Democracy is part and parcel of our everyday lives for those who lived in democratic countries, and we normally think democracy as freedom, human rights. In this chapter, I will briefly define what it is and its history, etc. And please bear in mind I cannot possibly cover all the perspectives, destinations, etc. of democracy, as the presentation might be too long if I go through it one by one. Thanks for the understanding. So, what exactly is democracy? Democracy is a system of government in which state of power is vested in the people or the general population of a state. Under a minimalist definition of democracy, rulers are elected through competitive elections, while more expansive definitions link democracy to guarantees of civil liberties and human rights in addition to competitive elections. How does it function in our society? In a direct democracy, the people have the direct authority to deliberate and decide legislation. In a representative democracy, the people choose governing officials through elections to do so. However, who is considered part of the people has changed over time and at different rates in different countries. Some features of democracy include freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, speech, citizenship, consent of the governed, voting rights, freedom from unwanted governmental deprivation of the right to life and liberty, and minority rights, associations, and last but not least, personal property. Who, where, why, and when is democracy created? The term first appeared in the 5th century BC in Greek city-states, notably classic Athens, to mean rule if the people went under. Cleisthenes, an ancient Athenian lawgiver, what is generally held as the first example of a type of democracy was established in Athens. In 430 BCE, the Athenian democracy of Cleisthenes and Pericles was based on freedom of citizens through reforms of Solon and on equality of citizens, isonomia. This is a map showing democracy index across the world. Summary from the democracy index. From the democracy index on the previous slide, we can conclude that half or more democracies in the world are called flawed democracies. For example, USA and India, and the remaining ones are called full democracies, for example Norway and Canada. The rest countries, which are in orange or red, are either hybrid or authoritarian regimes, for example communism or dictatorships. So what is flawed democracy? Flawed democracy or defective democracy are nations where elections are fair and free and basic civil liberties are honored, but may have issues. Example: media freedom infringement and minor suppression of political oppositions or critics. These nations have significant faults in other democracy aspects, including underdeveloped political culture, low levels of participation in politics, and issues in the functioning of governance. What if full democracy then? Full democracies are nations where civic liberties and fundamental political freedoms are not only respected, but also reinforced by a political culture conducive to the thriving of democratic principles. Some benefits of democracy. Firstly, democracy gives room to correct mistakes. Secondly, if there are conflicts. Democracy gives room to resolve the conflicts. Thirdly, the dignity of all individuals gets enhanced due to democracy. Fourthly, democracy helps in promoting equality among all the citizens of the country. Last but not least, all citizens have equal weight in electing their government representatives. However, there are some downsides of democracy. Firstly, as democracy is based on electoral competition, it leads to corruption. Secondly, there is constant instability in democracy as the leaders keep changing the democracy as the elections are held regularly. Thirdly, the decision making in a democracy gets delayed as many people have to be consulted. Fourthly, there is no scope for mortality in democracy as it is all about power play and political competition. Lastly, elected government representatives end up making bad decisions as they do not understand what decision taken is in the best interest of the people. After discussing about the first chapter, we will now talk about the second chapter, capitalism. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. Main characteristics of capitalism include capital accumulation, competitive markets, price systems, private property, property rights recognition, voluntary exchange, and wage labor. Who, where, and when capitalism is created. Modern capitalist theory is traditionally traced to the 18th century treatise An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, which is a book written by Scottish political economist Adam Smith. How does capitalism function? Capitalism is often thought of as an economic system in which private actors own and control property in accord with their interest and demand and supply freely set prices in markets in a way that can serve the best interest of society. The essential feature of capitalism is the motive to make a profit. What are the advantages of capitalism? Firstly, it allows more efficient allocation of capital resources. Furthermore, competition leads to lower consumer prices. Moreover, wages and general standards of living rise overall. Lastly, it spurs innovation and invention. However, what are the disadvantages of capitalism? Firstly, it creates inherent class conflict between capital and labor. Furthermore, it generates enormous wealth disparities and social inequalities. Moreover, it can incentivize corruption and crony capitalism in the pursuit of profit. Lastly, it produces negative effects such as pollution. In conclusion, when democratic capitalism has undoubtedly delivered significant economic benefits, its flaws and challenges cannot be ignored. Its future will depend on the ability of societies to address these issues while preserving the core values of democracy and capitalism. This might involve reforms to promote greater equality, environmental sustainability, and accountability, ensuring that the benefits of capitalism are shared more widely among all members of society. These links below are the different website links where I had took the resources and informations from. After listening to my presentation, do you guys have any feedbacks on the presentation? Please do not hesitate and comment down in the comments section. Thanks for the feedback. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys for listening to the presentation. Please like and subscribe and share if you enjoyed and learned something from the video.